After I offhandedly mentioned the increasing role the United States state governments are playing in censoring content and materials available in public institutions, I wanted to share my own experience of my state government attempting to intrude on my NSFW internet searches, the resulting futility of it, as well as my act of civil disobedience. I was originally going to work on a video about COSA first, but my planned demonstration of how to call your senators was poorly timed since it's Labor Day weekend, so that one is currently delayed. Before I get into the meat of this video addressing an anti-cornography law, I want to define what cornography is first. I've been mulling it over in my head trying to decide on a definition because what is considered cornography is often left up to interpretation. After all, images like pinup can be cornographic to some, while others might argue it's just risque. Eventually, I decided on something that describes what most, if not all of us will agree is cornography. A performance or depiction of schmexuality by consenting adults, often involving intercourse or other related schmexual activities on paper or in front of a camera for the purpose of distribution, in which financial compensation may or may not be involved. Gay and lesbian corn is not always done by two gay men or two lesbian women, especially when created by industry studios, and kinks do play a huge part in cornography, so that is why I described it as a performance of schmexuality. As I stated in my previous video, content moderation, I moved to Arkansas roughly 2 years ago. Like Texas and Florida, it has also done its fair share of book banning, although it hasn't gotten quite the same media attention. But that's not what I'll be covering. After all, the state does legally have jurisdiction in determining what books should or shouldn't be allowed in their school libraries. However, recently, Arkansas passed a law, SB 66, which went into effect August 1st of this year, requiring websites that host and distribute pornography or other materials deemed harmful to minors, with exceptions, to require age verification from their users and that information not be retained. Meaning I would have had to provide personal information every time I wanted to access the site. You can imagine how much of a huge invasion of privacy that is, your personal information being tied to your private internet searches, especially as an adult, as I imagine I'm not the only one who's gotten used to being able to utilize and enjoy mine quite liberally. And if you are familiar with online security and are educated in cybersecurity, you already know how potentially dangerous this is. Sharing your information once is bad enough, the less you share as few times as you can being the ideal, but having to do so repeatedly increases the risk of your personal information getting caught up in a hack or data breach. All it takes is a malicious hacker finding a flaw in the security or taking advantage of a backdoor and utilizing a bot or program to phish for the personal information you'd be providing to access the site. It's likely one of the reasons why Cornhub and RedTube, along with similar sites, have blocked access to devices using Arkansas IP addresses. Instead of the normal homepage, you'll be redirected to a page with information explaining why you can't access the site proper, with Cornhub and RedTube saying the exact same thing. Dear user, as you may know, your elected officials in Arkansas are requiring us to verify your age before allowing you access to our website. While safety and compliance are at the forefront of our mission, giving your ID card every time you want to visit an adult platform is not the most effective solution for protecting our users, and in fact will put children and your privacy at risk. In addition, mandating age verification without proper enforcement gives platforms the opportunity to choose whether or not to comply. As we've seen in other states, this just drives traffic to sites with far fewer security measures in place. Very few sites are able to compare to the robust trust and security measures we currently have in place. To protect children and user privacy, any legislation must be enforced against all platforms offering adult content. The safety of our users is one of our biggest concerns. We believe that the best and most effective solution for protecting children and adults alike is to identify users by their device and allow access to age-restricted materials and websites based on that identification. Until a real solution is offered, we have made the difficult decision to completely disable access to our website in Arkansas. This part's a little late, but please contact your representatives before it is too late and demand device-based verification solutions that make the internet safer while also respecting your privacy. What they mean by device-based verification is information that is tied to your phone, tablet, computer, or other device that would identify you as a minor or adult through services offered by your internet service provider and through parental control programs and applications, essentially acting like a filter controlling what your device has access to. I'm positive that we are all at least aware of parental controls. I myself had fallen victim to them when I was in high school, like a decade ago. I can confidently say my mom was on top of things. I don't know if she had access to my search history, but considering she didn't know I was reading smut on fanfiction sites, I'd wager she didn't. What she was able to do was block my access to adult sites or other sites that hosted potentially inappropriate content, in which I would have had to inform my mom I wanted access to a particular site if I was confident that I would be allowed to view it. That was possible because sites are labeled in much the same way that movies, games, and TV shows are. Barbie.com, for example, was encoded in such a way that informed parental controls and ISPs that the site was acceptable for children and so allowed them to access without having to inform the parent or require parental permission. In turn, Cornhub, RedTube, and other legitimate pornography sites are labeled RTA, or restricted to adults, making it very easy to restrict your child's access to these sites through your internet service provider or parental controls. So why make a law when solutions already exist? I'll pick at the low-hanging fruit and call out lazy parenting first. In much the same way the United States government attempted to ban explicit and disturbing lyrics back during the satanic panic of the 80s and 90s, a certain demographic of parents are willing to relinquish their ability to determine what is and isn't appropriate for their own child and instead allow the state to decide for them. Instead of being active and informing themselves of the media their child is consuming or expressed a desire to consume, they're content with their government making those important choices of what is appropriate for their child for them. Their unwillingness to be parents to their own children is resulting in a disturbing willingness to relinquish their parental rights. The other part of it is the other low-hanging fruit. Arkansas is a state nestled in the Bible Belt, and it is well known that Christians, particularly Southern denominations, view pornography as sinful. And when your state constitution only allows members of the church to hold public office, Article 19, Section 1, if you're curious, it's easy for me to claim that this law was religiously motivated, especially when viewing reactionary videos on TikTok of church members in Arkansas celebrating the news, seeking to impose a religious doctrine on every Arkansas citizen regardless of their own individual beliefs or lack thereof. In reality, this law would have never been enforceable, not without violating people's civil liberties. I still have an out-of-state number, so when I disconnected from my Wi-Fi, I was able to access Cornhub no problem. At first, I thought it was because I had an out-of-state number until people who had Arkansas numbers informed me that they too could access Cornhub and similar sites if they disconnected from their own Wi-Fi. Add in VPNs and being able to proxy from a different server, I no longer have to use my data to watch Corn. This law was never enforceable even if Cornhub had complied. I and other Arkansas residents would have just had to disconnect from our internet or use VPNs to get around the age verification. State time and tax dollars were wasted legislating a law that was never enforceable in the first place. Words do not express the ridiculousness of the situation. And Arkansas isn't even the only state to have enacted this law. Louisiana, Mississippi, Utah, and Virginia have also passed similar laws. Growing up, I was told time and time again that when I became an adult, I would be able to enjoy adult privileges, and laws that more or less criminalize these activities, on the internet in this case, are unjustly interrupting my ability to enjoy these rights and would force me to take unnecessary risks to exercise them. Additionally, they simply redirect internet traffic to more unscrupulous sites who likely have more malicious intentions. In an effort to curb the number of people resorting to riskier sites as well as people relying on their data, I'll share my particular method of accessing my Corn. The VPN I use is called VPN Super Unlimited Proxy. It's pretty straightforward, and the free version has only mildly intrusive ads. For a program that will ultimately be running in the background, a 10-second ad feels manageable. And for those who take issue with me providing tools to access pornography in these anti-corn states, I remind you that I'm an adult, and many who watch pornography are adults as well. And even if these sites had decided to comply with the law rather than pull out of these states, I still would have refused to put my personal information at risk or have it tied to my adult searches. And I take issue with you making your unwillingness to parent my problem. Every generation knows what the talk is, and this was the eventual responsibility that you would inevitably had to tackle at some point in your child's life. And I'm not about to let you pretend that you're powerless in these situations since, as I've stated earlier, parental control applications exist. Talk to your internet service provider and discuss what your options are and research current parental control apps and find one best suited to your needs. And most importantly, have the talk in whatever age-appropriate manner is best suited for your child. Remember, you are more experienced in these matters, and it's important to lay the foundations of this type of communication so that if your child is ever unsure or is facing situations that makes them uncomfortable, that they know that they can come to you without fear of judgment. Because if you don't, you put your child at risk of making riskier decisions or make them vulnerable to coercion or manipulation. You are a parent, and that comes with responsibilities, and infringing on the rights of other adults won't absolve you of them.